go through a couple of films here of Robert Carradine, who passed away in February. And I just found him an interesting guy, man. I just found him interesting in certain ways. And I remember him from when I was a kid, in my youth, and there were certain films that he was in. He was never a big star. I think his brother was way bigger than him, if you want to look at it that way. He had two brothers, Keith and David Carradine. David Carradine was in the Kill Bill films, and he was in the Kung Fu TV series years back as well. So here's a couple of films that he was in. He was in a John Wayne film in the '60s. I think it was one of his first films. He's only very, very young in it there. You can see him there in the picture. John Wayne's The Cowboys, and he had a part in it. A substantial part as well. I don't think it was that small. There was a couple of kids and stuff in it, teenagers in it. I'd never seen the film, so I don't know that much about it, but I do know he was in it, and it was probably one of his last films, John Wayne's last films, one of his last films. And he was in a film called Orca the Killer Whale with Richard Harris, which was, even to this day, right? This film, Orca the Killer Whale, I can never. It's the only one of the only films that I can watch that gives me a rare emotion when I watch it. I don't know if it's to do with the music or just the eeriness of the killer whale in the water, or Ennio Morricone done the music for it. But Robert Carradine was in the movie, and I liked the movie, but I didn't know he was in it until I started looking through his catalog of movies. Now it's obvious that he's in it, but I couldn't never remember that he was in it, right? So then there's The Long Riders. These are just a couple of the films that he was in that were big enough kind of movies. He was in loads of stuff, loads of TV series. He worked, through his whole career. I think he was about 71 when he passed on there in February. The Long Riders is about Jesse James and the gang, and the Pinkertons. Is it the Pinkertons are the ones that are after them? And then there was the Jesse James, the boys, and there was another gang as well. Another name I can't remember. There he is with his brother, David Carradine. I think he's his half brother. I don't think he's his full brother. The Big Red One was a World War II movie. There's Mark Hamill there. You can see him from Star Wars. I'm not sure what year this was done. Probably was done in the late 70s, maybe 1980, 1982, maybe something like that. Maybe the late 70s. And there's a World War II movie. Look, Lee Marvin there is in the film. He was in World War II. He was in the services, Lee Marvin. And I have my own view on World War II. I think we're lied to about World War II. Even if I had no evidence about it, it's obvious right now with what's going on in Europe. The Jewish bankers won World War II, but we'll leave that to the side for a second. Europeans definitely didn't win World War II. That's pretty obvious, right? The English and the Americans were duped in the media about what was really going over, what they were really fighting against. They were fighting Bolshevism, they were fighting communism, they were basically fighting what's going on right now, which is the complete replacement of Europe, and England and America helped them do it. Right, but anyway, it's a tough pill for people to swallow, I know. But the truth is the truth, and it's hard to get there sometimes what the truth is. You have to be not a nice person in loads of ways, in a bizarre way, to understand the truth, because human beings are not worth the paper they're printed on. So Revenge of the Nerds was one of his big films that you probably will remember him from more than any other movie. Revenge of the Nerds, actually a pretty good film. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. I remember him in it, but I didn't really remember the movie so much until I seen it a couple of weeks ago. Pretty good movie. There's a bit of nonsense, of course, in it, because Hollywood is run by the enemy and it's a propaganda machine, and they always get their nonsense in there somehow. But at the same time, once you know what Hollywood is, you can still look at movies and enjoy them and just say, yeah, okay, that's a load of crap, and yeah, right, yeah, that's not going to happen, or but there was a bit of controversy about this film later on, because There's like, with the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, there's a scene in it where he has sex with a girl that he fancies and she doesn't know it's him. He has a mask on or something like that, But, if we're intelligent creatures, which we're not most of the time, we wouldn't be trying to emulate that. It's a movie, for fuck's sake. It's a movie. All right? That's what it is. It's just make believe. It's like, any actor or actress going out there with their wig and their makeup and their pretense and their costumes on, we don't think it's real. Anyone that watches a Hollywood movie doesn't think it's real. It's like watching Schindler's List and taking it serious. It's a movie, dude. And a lot of the time, it's just made up elements in the movie, and they're propaganda for the masses of the incredible masses of people outside the system. Right. So this is another film he was in, John Carpenter's Body Bags. There was like three stories in the movie. The first one is where David Carradine is the episode that David Carradine is in his little short movie in the Body Bags film, which is pretty good. I liked it. I think it was the best one. And the second one is with Stacy Keach, and he's this guy. He's actually pretty good. Watch it. It's actually pretty good. And he's a guy that's obsessed with going bald, right? And he finally gets this head of hair that he likes, but with a twist to it, which is pretty good. It was pretty good. And then the third one is with, who was in the third one? I think it's Mark Hamill again. I think Mark Hamill is in the third one, something to do with he gets his eye replaced. He has an accident in a car accident, and he gets his eye replaced, and the person that had the eye previously was a serial killer. So he kind of plays out. So it's pretty good. He plays out the serial killer role when his eye is attached to him when he gets it replaced into his eye socket. So it was pretty good. Ghost of Mars. I'm not sure what part Robert Carradine. I keep getting the name wrong. Robert Carradine played in Ghost of Mars. I seen it years ago in the cinema. Ice Cube was in it. Not interested in watching it, thanks. So this is where I was watching a bit of Robert Carradine, and I was watching this podcast with Robert Gabai. He's a movie director as well in Hollywood, and he was co-hosting with Robert Carradine, and I was watching this podcast, or popcast as they call it, and I was watching it, and I found Robert Carradine to be of interest to me because the way he held himself and how he was funny, and he didn't talk all too much. He didn't seem completely absorbed with himself, and he seemed like he was a great listener to people, and people reacted to him in a way that they kind of like were very taken with him. And I just find him interesting. I found him interesting to look at and just to observe the way he was going on. And he just seemed very kind of humble and funny and a good listener and just an interesting guy, which most people are not. People are self-absorbed. They think that they're the center of the universe. They think that, whatever it is that, it's like a storm everyone's like a storm in a teacup. And you have to be aware of yourself, not to be like, oh, I'm so important, and there's loads of people out there who think they're so important that they're going to mess around with your life in some way. They're going to come to a very abrupt end at some point, these people, by the way, as well. Right. But this guy wasn't like that. So I found him very, very fascinating. So I was watching loads of the Party Nerds podcast, not so much for the guests or Richard Gabai, but for Robert Carradine, because he just seemed very interesting to me. And the way he went on just seemed very interesting. So I was watching it, and after about 7 or 8 episodes, I found out that he passed on a few months ago. And he passed on through suicide. And I was thinking, like, geez, man, yeah, so he hung himself, right? But I was thinking, like, geez, this is the guy that you would think wouldn't be doing that, but people have their own reasons for doing that kind of stuff, right? I don't think there's any of us can question, you shouldn't have done this, you should have done that. He made a decision to end his life, right? And that's nothing to do with us. That's to do with him, right? But I found him interesting, and maybe you'll find him interesting too. I just found him interesting in the podcast and the way he was going on, the way he'd be listening, like I said, the way that he'd be kind of like not self-absorbed, the way that he would come across very much like that he was very interested in people, and the main attribute was that he didn't seem self-absorbed and so self-important, which I think is a fantastic quality that anyone has. Very few people can have that, and he had a humbleness about him, which was interesting to watch. Right, so if you're interested in that, maybe check out that podcast because uh, it was good fun and good information in it as well. And so rest in peace, Robert Carradine. And I remember him from my childhood, from certain films and stuff, especially Revenge of the Nerds. But anytime I seen him, even in a small part, I always kind of was, I always noticed him to a certain point, right? And so, anyhow, so rest in peace, Robert Carradine.